Turning now to what is next after the death of al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. Last night, the White House, President Biden announced a U.S. drone strike killed the 9/11 mastermind. Al-Zawahiri had been running al-Qaeda since Osama bin Laden was killed, helping the terror organization expand to other countries. With us now is CBS News foreign policy and national security contributor H.R. McMaster. He previously served as former President Trump's national security advisor. General, it's good to see you.
Hey, Vlad, good to be with you.
So, just for context here, General, explain to our viewers, I mean, in the wake of that horrific day on September 11th, President Bush and the administration put together a list of all the known plotters, all of the people suspected in having planned that attack that killed more than 3,000 Americans, and systematically, over the course of successive administrations, took them out. What does this mean to those 9/11 families, to the people in this country who for the last 20 plus years have known that al-Zawahiri was still on the run? What does it mean that finally President Biden was able to take out this last critical member of this organization?
Well, it means that justice was finally visited upon Zawahiri. You know, he has so much blood on his hands, of course, from the largest terrorist attack ever in history on September 11th, 2001. But even going back to the first World Trade Center bombing in '93, as well as the attack on the USS Cole and our two embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in '98, I believe. So Zawahiri has been behind many of these attacks, and he has actually been very critical as well to the alliance between al-Qaeda and the Taliban.
So now that he's gone, in your view, how dangerous is al-Qaeda right now?
You know, I think they're as dangerous as they were prior to September 11th, 2001. And I know that's a scary statement to make, but what is keeping us safe is our continued efforts to strike at this organization abroad. What you're seeing now is the intertwining of many terrorist organizations, from West Africa to the Maghreb to Syria to Yemen to Iraq, and then across into this other geographic epicenter of jihadist terrorism in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And when these groups enjoy a safe haven, when they control the state in Afghanistan, they become much more dangerous because they can at their leisure kind of plan, prepare, and organize attacks. That's why the strike is important, but it shouldn't give us a false sense of security. I think al-Qaeda is gaining strength, and it's gaining strength in many ways through its alliances with the Taliban and other jihadist terrorist organizations.
You've written a great book, General, called Battlegrounds: The Fight to Defend the Free World. And in the book, you say, quote, al-Qaeda and the Taliban were a match made in hell. Can you explain what the relationship between the Taliban and al-Qaeda are right now? Because it does seem as if they are still intertwined, given that they are providing safe haven to this terrorist.
Well, they're ideologically aligned, right? These are groups that use a perverted interpretation of Islam to justify their criminal acts in pursuit of a political objective, which is to establish an Islamic state, an Islamic emirate. Hey, the Taliban have succeeded in that. And over many years, Zawahiri would pledge his bayat, his fealty to Taliban, and say the Taliban was the vanguard of the establishment of the Islamic Emirate. So we created this kind of, this delusion, this fantasy that there's this bold line between the Taliban and other jihadist terrorist groups, including al-Qaeda, when in fact these groups exist in ecosystems in which they share people and resources, and they plan and prepare attacks together. And Zawahiri is a manifestation of connection. He was staying in a house, in the Sherpur district of Afghanistan, which is really kind of a diplomatic house under the control of Siraj Haqqani, who's the Minister of Interior, who's one of the most heinous individuals on earth, one of the most dangerous terrorists on earth. And hey, guess who's in charge of the Ministry of Interior in Afghanistan? That's what makes this is such a dangerous situation. How many passports has Afghanistan issued to known terrorists? I think the number's in the thousands, for example. And we've created this idea that somehow we could partner with the Taliban against al-Qaeda. I mean, it was really the height of what I call in battleground strategic narcissism, right? Defining the world only in relation to us, and defining even our enemies as we would like them to be, rather than how they are in reality.
General, is it even more than ideological alignment that the Taliban really, they don't have a lot of friends, right? They've gone back on a lot of what they had promised that would occur after the withdrawal. And so they need to find friends anywhere they can. Al-Qaeda is still a large organization. They're in Afghanistan. They're not getting them out. Maybe, Al-Qaeda represents a friend in the region that they need because they don't have many.
Well, Anne-Marie, I think they actually are obsessed with enemies, right? I mean, they define anyone who does not adhere to their narrow and perverted interpretation of Islam as, a rejectionist or an unbeliever or an infidel. And so what they've done from the very beginning is reject really anything that the rest of the civilized world has asked them to do in the hope that maybe they could gain some friends, right? Remember, they were going to share power. How did that work out? Then they were going to allow women to go to school and impose a more benign form or version of Sharia. How did that work out? They said that they would not support jihadist terrorist organizations or give them safe haven, and we see that was a lie as well. So it's really, I think, way past time in this 1 year, after this 1 year anniversary of the disastrous really surrender to a terrorist organization and withdrawal, that we end our self-delusion, because the self-delusion, I think, creates opportunities for our enemies.
Very quickly, do you think that the Taliban has the ability to control Al-Qaeda?
No, probably not, but they're aligned with them, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, they aid and abet them, and of course there are various other terrorist organizations in that same region, some of which are aligned, some of which fight each other periodically. But I think it's really important to recognize they are in this ecosystem where they do share resources and they cooperate when they can. I mean, we try too hard as an analyst, Tom Jocelyn, says, we try too hard to disconnect the dots. And I think it's really important for us to understand, that this ecosystem and how these groups are intertwined.
H.R. McMaster, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Thanks, Vlad.